Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we're going to be reviewing episode 3 of the Web Planet, which I think is called Escape to Danger. Which doesn't sound like a very good plan on its own, does it? Escape to Danger? Doesn't sound like a good idea to me. But I like the opening shot of this one when it shows the doctor surrounded by the Zarbi. It does a really good job. The story does a really good job a fair amount of the time of trying to hide those human legs, and I've talked about that in the first two reviews, that my issue with the Zarbi are those very human looking legs they have, that they actually, the ones they're actually walking with, you can tell it's just kind of a human legs in a costume. They don't look like insect legs, but the story actually does do a fairly good job of trying to hide that. And that opening shot where you see the Zarbi more from the back does a good job of that. Parts 1 and part 2 do that too sometimes, where they just kind of show them in, like, just partial view where you don't see all of them. That's a pretty impressive job with the Zarbi, because other than the human legs, I actually like the Zarbi design. It's the moth people design I don't really care for. That one looks weird. I don't really get into the moth people design. There is this one scene. Keep in mind, I'm watching this story for the first time. And here on episode 3, there is a scene where a Zarbi walks by the camera, and then the camera, it looks like they bumped the camera. Because you see the Zarbi walk by, and then the camera just goes, it's like the Zarbi bumped it. The guy in the costume just got a little close and bumped into it, and they kept it in. I guess they just didn't have time to reshoot it. You can actually see the camera just. Oh, it's so horrible. Oh, I've always heard this story was ambitious, but that the budget wasn't there. Oh, man, has the execution of this budget just been. It's almost like they ran out of money. Like, think Power of Prowl, like Power of Prowl. It just feels like it's a good story with a bad execution. Or the Invasion of Time, where it's just obvious that the money ran out. That's the Invasion of Time's biggest problem, is that the money's just gone. It's obvious. This looks like that, but we're not even, what is Web of Fear, like halfway through the season, maybe? Around halfway through the season. It's not like the worst. It's bad, but it's not the worst. Oh, I don't. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Anyway, yeah, the moth people's outfits still don't impress me. They're kind of bad. The scene when the guy takes flight looks pretty neat when he kind of flies, other than the fact it's still using that camera that just looks. The one that has the cameraman that just obviously doesn't care behind it. That's pretty funny. I'll admit that. That's pretty amusing. So, losing my train of thought. Man, holding this up for so long does make my arm sore. But it actually feels semi-decent out today, so felt like getting out. But no, the moth outfits, it's oh, they're awful. They're terrible. So that's pretty funny. But yeah, there's still that one camera, as I talked about in my reviews for part 1 and part 2, where it just looks like they put Vaseline over the lens. And it's usually like the camera they use for the outside shots in this episode, and it looks awful. I don't know if they did it on purpose to go for some kind of dramatic effect. It does not work. It's so bad. But there are times, like toward the end, when Ian is talking with one of the moth people, and it's like partially smeared, and it doesn't look like like they're going for an effect. It just looks like a camera that needs to be cleaned. And I swear, like I mentioned in my part 2 review, I swear there's just one cameraman on this story that just does not give a fuck. He does not give two fucks. He's just there. Like, he hates Doctor Who and found out that he was having to do cameraman a Doctor Who episode, and he was just like, fuck it. I noticed that too in the scene when the Zarbi bumps the camera. It's also, the camera's also one of those with the Vaseline on it, so it's probably the same cameraman. And they were probably like, oh, hey, did that shot go okay? And he was like, fuck it, your shot was fine. He didn't bump the camera, nah, it's fine. And they didn't realize it until they were watching it later, and they were just like, well, we have to use it. Because they couldn't really go back and redo something like that back then. So I think, I do, to me, that's in my head canon now for this story, that there's just this one cameraman that gives absolutely zero fucks about the job for whatever reason. And he's like, Vaseline on the camera, I don't care. Zarbi just bumped the camera. Whatever, I don't care. Oh, when I first saw that camera bump, I had to rewind it and watch it again. And I laughed so hard. I mean, I was just chuckling away the whole time about it. It gave me such a laugh. Oh, man. I did like the scene when the Doctor's doing the little helmet, little thing that he communicates with whatever it is he's communicating with. And he's like, well, go ahead and lower down this hairdresser or whatever. That's funny. I forget exactly what he says, but he basically calls the thing a hairdresser. That's hilarious, I'll admit. To me, that's just as funny as a space helmet for a cow. Go ahead and lower down the hairdresser or whatever. I don't know, because it does kind of look like one of those little hairdressing units. I'll admit that gave me a good chuckle. The main cast continue to impress me in this. If there is a good thing about this I really like, it is the main cast. Hartnell is very in command of the situation. Throughout all of this story so far, Hartnell has never felt out of control. He is maintaining control. He's not letting this voice boss him around. There's a certain other doctor who tends to be about 37 steps behind whenever something's going on. She could learn a lot from the first doctor in this story about being in control of the situation. Let us say. I won't say which doctor I'm talking about, but she could learn a lot from this situation, from this story, and how William Hartnell carries himself as the doctor in this story. But yeah, I am not overly impressed with this story thus far. It's not been a good story. It has little moments sprinkled in it that I've liked. It has little things that I like, little camera shots, some of the acting, some of the stuff I've mentioned in other reviews. And that's the way I look at it, is it's pretty not great, with some nice things that I do really like sprinkled in here and there, kind of making it interesting. That I like. But I'm halfway through it, and I think the people who ripped this story to shreds, I think they have a point on this one thus far. I haven't been impressed with it. It wouldn't be nearly as bad if it just didn't have that one camera that just always looks dirty and needs a good wiping down. But as it is, it's pretty awful. So, the Web Planet, Escape to Danger, episode 3. I'm halfway through the story. I'm not thinking much of it. I think the other entity, I called in my part 2 review that there had to be a third party at work here, whatever that voice is that's talking to the doctor. I think it's a spider, if I had to guess. I mean, the creature talks about its web, and the most common thing I can think of with webs is either spiders or the Great Intelligence, and we know the Great Intelligence doesn't show up yet. So it has to be spiders. That and the fact that one Zarbi is afraid of the doctor's little pet spider. Ooh, my arm's getting tired. Because we've seen that one little pet spider, and the one Zarbi was afraid of it. So I do think that's probably why the Zarbi are working for it, is it's a spider. So I'm calling it now. I mean, it's even called the Web Planet, so obviously, you know, web's a big deal and part of the story. So I'm calling that the other entity is a giant spider, which isn't exactly new ground in Doctor Who. I guess it was then, but having seen Planet of the Spiders, Arachnids in the UK, this is still better than Arachnids in the UK so far. I'm going to call giant spider. So that's my thoughts on it. Halfway through the story, not really impressing me that much at the moment. Episode 3 of the Web Planet. What do you think of it? Comment down below and let me know, because I always enjoy hearing from you guys. Other things to do: click the like button and the subscribe button and the bell for notifications so you never miss out on another video. I also have a Patreon if you like what I do and like to contribute to what I do. There is a link to that down in the description below. I want to give a shout out to 2 of my top tier patrons, Stephen Crane and the 5th Doctor. I appreciate their continued support and the support of all of my patrons. I also have my P.O. box is down in the description if there's anything you'd like to send me, as is a link to my Amazon wish list as well, if there's anything on there that interests you. Most importantly though, thank you for watching.